From slapping his wife Anne on New Year's Eve in a club to literally being blackmailed over a tape by a stranger, let's take a look at Dana White's most controversial moments. And right off the bat, it's his gambling problem. Now, the head of UFC is infamous for spending big money in casinos. So much so that people have seen him sitting at the tables for hours, just gambling away with massive stakes. It's even rumored that he once won $7 million in a single night. That's some luck. This same reputation for being lucky has gotten him banned from a bunch of places too. And I'm talking about major casinos like the Palm, the Mirage, and the Wynn. I mean, it got so bad that he was kicked out of the Palm twice. Once, a fan even offered to get White some help about his problem. But Dana, being Dana, refused to listen and said that he was in no mood for quitting. He even joked about how he considers gambling as a part-time job. But that's not all. White revealed in 2021 that back in 2007, he bet $1 million on Jermaine Taylor beating Kelly Pavlik. But the whole thing left a bad taste in his mouth since Taylor lost the fight. The loss ended up ruining his holiday to Cabo. He further explained how this was the first time he bet $1 million and ended up losing. It's safe to say that Dana hates betting on live sports now, but everything else is fair game. That doesn't mean he's given up on live sports betting, because Dana isn't a man of his word. Do you guys remember the time when he said women would never step foot in the UFC? Yep, that really happened. Back in 2011, the UFC president was asked if he could ever imagine seeing women in the UFC. White infamously replied back by saying, "Never." That didn't sit too well with a lot of people for obvious reasons, but the thing is that you should never say never, because only 2 years after this, female fighters became a part of the UFC, thanks to Ronda Rousey. I mean, female fighters changed the sport completely and managed to become big moneymakers for the UFC. You can't even imagine the promotion without them now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure White regrets making that comment. I mean, he even tried to spin it off as a joke, but clearly after some insightful reflection, in an interview, Dana admitted he was wrong and talked about how excited he was about the future of the UFC with female fighters a part of it. He even believes that female fighters are equal to male fighters now, which I know is literally the bare minimum, but coming from Dana, that counts for a lot. Not only this, but the UFC president has even come under fire for the way he handled the Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor fiasco. Everyone remembers the post-fight brawl that took place between these two, and the time Conor attacked the Eagles' bus. Right? It was just pure chaos all around. And while White couldn't have stopped all this from happening, critics believe he was too lenient with his sanctions on the pair, especially McGregor, who everyone knows is his favorite fighter. I mean, people were expecting some extreme punishment to be handed down, but that didn't end up happening. Instead, both fighters ended up receiving a small fine and were suspended for some months. Dana even decided to use the footage of Conor attacking the bus as promotion for their fight, which was pretty messed up. White then defended the decision by saying that it was just part of the storyline, and how this wasn't the first time the company used real-life hatred between two fighters to promote a bout. But it's not only his decisions inside the UFC that get him in trouble. Believe me when I say, the guy is just as controversial outside of it. Just take, for example, the time he decided to support Donald Trump. Now, the former president remains a pretty controversial figure in politics, and people who've supported him have had to face quite some heat from the public. Well, Dana certainly didn't care about that. Back in 2016, at the Republican National Convention in Ohio, the UFC boss publicly announced that he was endorsing Trump's campaign. And as you can guess, some fans didn't respond too well to that. You guys might be wondering, why Trump of all people, right? Well, as it turns out, the two of them have quite some history with each other. Dana claims that Trump supported the UFC at its beginnings when other venues refused to host UFC events, hence the loyalty towards him. Then, in February 2020, he donated $1 million to America First Action, which was basically a political action committee that supported the re-election of Donald. Plus, just recently, the former United States president attended a UFC event and chatted with Dana, just days after he was indicted on criminal charges. Still, to be honest, not many fans care about who Dana aligns himself with politically, as long as he continues to deliver amazing fights. Now, if this left you guys shocked, well, you better hang on tight then, because Dana was even involved in a scandal. Now, this is one controversy that the UFC president wishes people would forget about. Back in 2014, an exotic dancer allegedly captured a encounter she had with Dana. That, too, during the time he was married. The stripper even claimed that the two of them had been seeing each other for months. Things turned ugly when the stripper's live-in boyfriend tried to use the video to blackmail White for money, which led to Dana filing a criminal case against him. Because obviously nobody messes with the UFC president and gets away with it. The boyfriend then ended up going to prison for a year. And when he was released, he took Dana to court and claimed that he was paid money by him to plead guilty. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed, but the fact that Dana isn't loyal to his wife shouldn't come as news to anyone at this point, especially keeping in mind the amount of allegations and rumors about him in the UFC world. But see, all of these controversies are old news by now. His latest scandal managed to beat them all. You guys want to know why? Well, because Dana literally slapped his wife in public. Yep. The UFC boss got himself mixed up in a domestic violence scandal. Believe me when I say this news shocked the entire world. Let me tell you guys what went down. TMZ released a video in which Dana was seen celebrating New Year's Eve with his wife, Ann, in a dance club in Mexico. Now, in the video, you can see the two of them talking to each other. Pretty normal, right? Well, that changes the second Dana comes closer to Ann and tugs at her arm. She reacts by slapping him right across the face. And how does Dana react? He slaps her right back. Twice. What is wrong with this couple, honestly? The UFC boss then pushes his wife on the ground. Thankfully, their friends separate the two from each other. Right after the video went viral, White came out and publicly apologized for the whole incident.
Have apologized to each other. We've apologized to our kids. And, this is one of those things that everybody's going to chime in. I could care less what anyone...
Even Ann gave out a statement defending her husband. To no one's surprise, the backlash was intense. People actually wanted Dana to step down from his position. But despite the fact that fans asked for White to be held accountable, the whole incident was just swept under the rug and business went on as usual in the UFC. Well, there you have it. Those were Dana White's most controversial moments.